Hello, my name is Lars Henrik Eriksen, and I am an author and illustrator from Norway. I am 28 years old and I have a degree in engineering, which might explain why I chose to create this book, which is called The Inventor, The Dangerous Discovery. The Inventor, The Dangerous Discovery is a graphic novel about an aspiring inventor named Cobalt and his best friend Linnea. They both live on the small island of Mata Mata where everyone has their own gigantic pet turtle. In this society, the turtles help out with almost anything, from farming to fishing to delivering the mail. Like ordinary children, Cobalt and Linnea attend to school, but the school itself is far from ordinary. Here, the classes are not only covering math, language, and science, but the main focus is on turtle behavior, turtle biology, and so on. For instance, one thing they teach at this school is how the turtles are able to grow so incredibly large. You see, as the turtles of Mata Mata get bigger, they undergo a process called shell changing, where the shell is switched out so they can keep on growing, almost like how a hermit crab changes its own shell. In other words, most of the daily life in this village revolves around turtles and tortoises. However, Cobalt does not find the slow pace of Mata Mata's turtles or people very exciting. He would rather become an inventor, just like his grandpa. Cobalt's grandfather lives on the edge of the village in a house that is very different from the other houses. Inside, he has numerous odd contraptions like this hamster wheel that produces electricity, or this coffee machine where you only have to put a cup underneath and pull the switch. He's also working on this strange new energy source which he has dubbed Alpha Energy. The weird thing about this Alpha Energy is that it's able to power up Grandpa's inventions way more than with regular electricity. His first experiment is to power up his homemade car to make it into a flying car. Cobalt and his grandpa go for a test flight with the machine, and the invention seems to be working perfectly, albeit with a few hiccups here and there. Later that day after school, Cobalt decides to bring Linnea to have a look at this new machine, so they sneak into Grandpa's garage to try it out. However, as Cobalt doesn't know how to operate it, it ends up malfunctioning and explodes. As a result, Linnea is blinded on one eye and Cobalt ends up in a wheelchair. Because of the accident, Cobalt's grandpa is exiled from the village, but before he is thrown out, he is able to sneak in a blueprint into Cobalt's bedroom. This blueprint contains the instructions on how Cobalt can create mechanical legs so that he will be able to walk again. I think that in order to tell great stories, you first need to experience the world on your own. I am traveling quite a lot and love seeing new places and meeting new people. Right now, I am in Switzerland, and to me, going out into the wilderness is the best way to get inspiration for new stories. When I began working on the Inventor series, I only had this picture of a young boy traveling the world on a giant turtle in my mind. I wanted him to go to strange locations and help others to find solutions to their problems. This ended up becoming Cobalt and the Turtle Island of Mata Mata. I usually begin planning my comics in a sketchbook where I draw small thumbnail sketches for the storyboarding, as well as larger sketches for particularly important scenes. For creating the comic book pages, I am working digitally with a setup that is moderately easy to transport. I transfer my hand sketches over to the computer and into Photoshop and continue working on them there. Sometimes I do the whole process digitally, sketching included. For me, sketching a face is a bit like sculpting, where I'm drawing in the facial features and chipping away parts until it looks just right. I also flip the canvas quite a lot, which helps me to see if something is wrong with the proportions. The next part is the inking process. Since I am working digitally, I can reduce the opacity of the sketch layer and then trace the lines directly on top of it in another layer. I think creating the line art is almost a bit meditative, as I've done the bulk of the planning in the sketching phase. For filling in the flat colors, I start by selecting the negative space around the character, invert the selection, and fill in one color first. Then I simply use the bucket tool on a new layer and make it so that it respects the boundaries made by the line work by checking off a box that says all layers. For this step, it is quite important that the lines are closed off so that the colors don't bleed out through the line work. After this, I have to import the file over to a program called Clip Studio Paint, where there is a function that helps me filling in all the colorless spots behind the lines. Back in Photoshop, I create a new layer used for shading cobalt. This layer is set to the multiply mode, which makes the colors of the layer add to everything underneath. When I fill in with a purple-ish color, the whole figure is cast in shadow. I erase some of it with a soft brush and start adding new shadows with a smaller brush. There are two things I like to do to make a character pop a bit more. One is to lock the line work layer and color it. Here I use the reddish color for the lines on his skin and blue for his shirt. The other thing is to create a layer for some extra lighting effects. I set this layer to the linear light mode and added an orange color with a soft brush. Lastly, I can add the speech balloons with some dialogue, or a very simple monologue in this case, and the panel frame, as well as painting in a quick background. For this panel illustration, I made the clouds with a stamp tool I created from a photo I took of a cloud, and drew the bushes with a homemade foliage brush. Now that that's done, I think I need a small break. Okay, we'll just let that guy keep on playing. In the meantime, I would like to show you a breakdown of how I create a page like this one. This page features the community center right after a major power outage in the village. This is of course none other than Cobalt's fault. 5 years after the accident, he has managed to create robotic legs from his grandpa's blueprints, but when he connects them to the power grid, he causes a blackout for the whole island. That's why the characters in this illustration are all standing around holding electronic appliances that no longer work. As I said earlier, this is the community center of Mata Mata. Since this building should represent the heart and soul of the village, I spent a lot of time trying to make it look as grand as possible. I wanted to create a place where people gather, so the building consists of the mayor's house, a library, and a bakery. I used this sketch for the illustration. It looks a bit different from the finished picture, but that is just a part of the process. I also experimented a lot with what should be the town center, and a lot of the designs came out of necessity from the story progression. This was the first version of Cobalt's house, but after a discussion with my editors, together we concluded that it would be better to go all out with the turtle theming. And the result was to use giant cast-off turtle shells for the roofs of all the houses in the village. By the way, all of the children standing in the staircase are from my friend group in middle school. To me, it's fun to include people I know as background characters. And that guy holding the television, that's me. I really like adding lots of details into my illustrations like this. For instance, there's a pretzel hanging outside the bakery, there are bookshelves outside of the library, and a book in the mailbox, which is also made from a turtle shell. And this is the oldest and wisest tortoise in the whole village. It has actually lived so long that it learned how to read. In the background, we can even see the turtle school and Cobalt's grandfather's house. I think adding in landmarks like this is an efficient way to show where all the locations are in relation to each other. One detail I enjoyed drawing are the 4 birds in the tree holding a radio. These same birds are in the chapter's title page, but here they have not yet hatched from their eggs. Speaking of the chapter pages, these are all featuring a small illustration and a proverb meant to be some sort of hint for the chapter to come. The Norwegian language has lots of neat proverbs and the English language as well. However, translating them can be a bit of a challenge, but I think my translators did a great job in this regard. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this showcase of The Inventor, The Dangerous Discovery. The book will be published in the US by the wonderful team at Papercuts on January 23rd, 2024. If you want to know more, you can scan this QR code, which takes you to the series page on the Papercuts website. And if you like the Inventor series, there's also a second book on the way, where Cobalt travels on a journey to find his grandfather. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day. And now I will continue to work on the third book in the series.